Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Professor Willy Maley. Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you, glad to be here.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to have you here. We spoke about it some time ago, so it's great to finally meet you. But I met you a couple of nights ago. We were at the Tommy Burns dinner in Edinburgh, and before you gave a great rendition of one of your poems, you paid tribute to a specific flag that was in the hall that night of the International Brigade. And I think if we go back to the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, that would be a good point to start this discussion about your Celtic state of mind.
Yeah, well, my father went to Spain December 1936 to fight for the Spanish Republic, and his first action 6 weeks later was the Battle of Jarama, which was a dreadful battle, middle of February 1936. And he was captured there. He was in No. 2 Machine Gun Company, the British Battalion, International Brigade. And he was captured with 28 other men for the Machine Gun Company. One of them was taken out and shot in the head in front of them. They thought the rest were going to get the same treatment. And then they were recognised as being British. Some of them had Russian uniforms on, but recognised, and they were tied with piano wire, their thumbs, head shaved, and taken first to this little place called Talavera de la Reina, and then to Salamanca, sentenced to 20 years and put in prison. Now, there were people in the prison with my father who were young Spaniards, and there were actually some Germans who were in and got interrogated by Gestapo and executed. So while they were in the prison, there were other prisoners being executed. But they were in, so it was 27 men, 90 a cell, I think, my father was in. And he was always interested in the Celtic score. There was a big match. There was a few big matches on. He wanted to find out what the score was. Because my dad was a die-hard fan and used to go with his two brothers. My father was born in 1908. So for about 19... I don't know, certainly for after the war, for about 1918 on, he'd begun a long... He lived in Calton, along London Road, with his two brothers. So when I started going to the games with my brothers, I always thought of this, pattern of 70 years or whatever, 80 years down the line, especially after my father passed away. So as I say, in 1937, my father was in a prison cell in Spain, wondering about the Celtic score. And then when my father passed away in 2007, the Green Brigade put up a big banner, "Rest in peace, James Maley, no passaran." And that was at the semi-final, I think, of the Scottish Cup against Kilmarnock, 9th of April 2007. I was sorry I couldn't be at that was the day of the funeral. So, but, and they talked about coming up with a banner up to the crematorium, which I'd have liked, but I'm from a big family and I would have to have run that at short notice past other people. Mm-hmm. But the internet, that flag, the flag of the Spanish Republic, was draped over my father's coffin. And one of his comrades who'd gone to Spain after my father, but inspired by my father, a young man at the time, Stevie Fullerton, came along to the funeral. And was there, so I thought that was a nice piece of history as well. But certainly, you could say my father's Spanish Civil War experiences were part of his devotion and commitment to Celtic and to a Celtic state of mind and to a certain kind of politics, which I would describe as radical, Republican, socialist. In my father's case, he joined the Communist Party in 1932. But yeah, so that tribute at Hampden was quite significant. I've got a photograph of that, of the banner, "Rest in peace, beautiful. James Maley, no passaran."
Absolutely. How difficult was it, do you think, for people like your father? Because there was a real conflict, if you like, because the UK's position on the Spanish Civil War, first and foremost, the Catholic Church and their involvement and the side that they took. How difficult would it have been, do you think, for you?
I think it was difficult, because you always hear stories about people who were a bit doubtful about being in a conflict where they were in there with people that served in the British Army, which obviously a lot of Irish people had as well in the past. But my father was a Catholic from the Calton, and so when he went, he saw several people that he'd saw in the Celtic bus. There was a good a kind of sense of community in leaving those three buses that left George Square in December 36. But the Catholic Church, as you say, the official position was they were much more sympathetic, or they were pro-Franco. And that was difficult. It was probably a bit less difficult. My father was 28 when he went. He was a wee bit older. And he was probably more Republican, political and socialist than he was Catholic. Although he'd been raised Catholic and was very devout in his youth. His older brother was a choir boy and all that. So, but I think my father was going through a kind of loosening up and breakage with that, but it was very difficult in those parts of Glasgow where the Catholic Church meant everything to a lot of people. At the same time, so did politics, and I think some people went against the wishes of the priests, as it were, and the bishops, to fight Franco, and they dealt with that, and then they came back, and there was no great fallout or schism. With my father, I would say that was probably the end of it, because I believe the Ancient Order of Hibernians also came out in favour of Franco. We always joked about my father's flute flying out the window, but my father later played the flute in the Communist Party band in the 1950s. But so, as I say, there was an issue, and I think the issue was especially strong in the west of Scotland, especially strong in the east end of Glasgow, where you had people from different radical political backgrounds who had to kind of reconcile themselves. And it was that whole thing about, the picture of Pope next to the picture of the Pope next to the picture of Lenin, and people trying to say, that Catholicism is entirely, reconcilable with radical revolutionary politics. But then you need to deal with the hierarchy that's saying, not so fast. And so I think that was a difficult time, but I think there was a real grassroots, thoroughly educated working class view in Glasgow. And my father had been reading up about Spain basically for the early 30s, because the socialist press was good. So I think for that, and there was loads of public speaking. My father used to speak, he had a wee collapsible platform that he carried, and he would speak at Govan Cross, then fold up his platform and walk to Glasgow Green, and get on the platform there and speak. So he was always speaking. He said the tram drivers used to toot their horns at him in Argyle Street. So that level of public speaking and political activity and engagement, that was very normal and part of the everyday, and inseparable in a way from the football and that whole kind of a culture.
It is interesting to look back on how this was communicated. As you say, there was a lot of good press.
Yeah, there was no internet.
And but they were still very well informed.
Yeah.
So we're obviously still living in a time where if a government or a group of people don't want a story to come out, it can be managed. Yeah. Much less so now with the advent of the internet. But back then, they could educate themselves on what was actually happening.
They could, and I think people people stood up and gave talks that were kind of historical accounts or lectures. John McGovern stood up in November, I think, 1936, in the city halls. It was packed. I think there were 1,100 people there, and gave a talk called "Why the Bishops Back Franco," and that was to counter what he saw as kind of Catholic hierarchy propaganda against the Spanish Republic at a time when people on the left were taking it up as a cause and so on. It was part of the anti-fascist struggle. So John McGovern, as a Catholic, stood up in front of this crowd, and a lot of them were young guys who were Catholics, but also socialists, Republicans, or anarchists, communists, these other things too. And I think that had a really big influence. The fact that you had access to other kinds of information, and if you like, the counter propaganda. And that was there. You could get it in the street corners, you got it in the public squares, you got it at Glasgow Green, you got it at Govan Cross, and you got it in the various city halls and venues around Glasgow. So I think there was a real ferment, and you realised people were well informed. I mean, it amazes me, my dad reading about the miners in Asturias and all that, and for the early so they had an interest. There was an interest in world politics that people in the Calton had. That internationalism was incredible.
It's interesting that you say that this Celtic state of mind, it's one of these age-old questions, what makes that up? I think radicalism sometimes play a part. I also find it interesting that your father was interested in the Celtic squad whilst he's in a Spanish prison. Yeah. So the team he watched, I mean, he would have watched some Celtic's greatest ever players. Yeah.
I mean, my dad saw Jimmy Quinn play. He saw Jimmy McGrory play, and then obviously he saw the Lisbon Lions play. I don't know when his first game was. So he was born in February 1908. He had two younger brothers. His father died, and my father's father died in 1929. But yeah, he was at the football for a very early age, and had a big interest, and had saw a lot of the greats play. I gave a talk at Croy some years ago, and it was just after my father died. But yeah, my father had seen the mighty Quinn.
It's incredible. And like many of us, that love of Celtic was passed on to yourself.
Yeah.
Born in 1960, so tell us about your introduction to going to Celtic Park and the team that you watched yourself.
Yeah. See, there was 5 sisters and 4 brothers in my family, so my father never took us out to football. And then my father went with his 2 brothers, Willie and Timmy, And then sometime, I don't know when my first game was, I don't know, they say people remember the first game, but probably for about 69 to 72, I started to get sporadically taken to matches. You know, some of the boys, or 4 of the boys, be lifted over the bar, if you don't know if you remember that, but I'd get lifted over the bar, and I remember that, and I remember games. A game I remember, for some reason, stats that were in my head were, at Celtic Park, Evan Williams was in goal, and the crowd was 35,000 for some reason. I remember sometimes an attendance or a score. I seem to remember a game at Firhill, but this might have been much later on, when Celtic won 5-1, Harry Hood scored for a corner. So you remember little things, and players that we liked. We sometimes took to players. My dad liked Tommy Callahan, you know, so we took a liking to him. So I remember those days. I remember going with a pal of mine who was a Rangers supporter. I went to Ibrox with him to see Rangers and Ajax, and he came to a Celtic match at Celtic Park, and he got the autographs for me. I was very shy as a wee boy. He got the autographs, and I got Billy McNeil, Bobby Lennox, Jimmy Johnson, and all of that. So as I say, probably on and off. I mean, I never went regularly because my father went with his brothers. It was a growing up a thing. And I remember we were to go to a Celtic and Rangers game in December 1972, I think it was. And although my father lived to 2007, he had a younger brother, Willy, same name as me, who died in 72. And we were all to go to the Celtic Rangers game that day, but Willy had passed away. And my dad came in the morning and said, "You're not going to the football," and our hearts sank. And then he said, "Willy's died." And we thought it's a shame. But my dad went to the game that day with his brother Timmy. And you think, well, I suppose my dad's attitude would be, what can you do? And so he went, but he wasn't going to take us. So I don't know when I thought, so that would have been my first Old Firm game, had I gone to that. But I saw the Hibs game, 6-2 was it? And I saw, sadly, Partick Thistle, 4-1. But, so yeah, for 69 to 72, I would say, and that's for the age of 8 up to 10, 11, was my beginnings of going to the games. And then after that, you're a bit older and you can go on your own and so on. Mm-hmm. So I've had these different patterns of watching games. Living memory is an amazing thing, and I realised that we did this guy Craig Curran, a Celtic supporter for, was it Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama. He did an interview with my father in 2004, and my father was 96, and it's on for an hour and it's on YouTube. But after my dad died, I remember being up in the Western Infirmary, died in a weekend. He was 99, and I remember looking out the window and thinking, my dad walked to city. I mean, my granny was a hawker. She took her went a bit with a wheelbarrow for the Calton, Stevenson Street, and my dad and his brothers would be in on they'd be tired at night and they'd get taken home just sitting in the wagon. But my dad also walked to city. He was an inveterate walker. He was nicknamed Wandering Willie, and when we grew up, once we moved to Postle, because people didn't walk without purpose. But my dad would come in for a day's labouring. He laboured till he was 65, and then he would go out and he would just walk the streets of Glasgow. So I remember just looking out the window for that 8th floor of Western Infirmary and thinking, my dad walked to city, every bit of it. And yeah, he had an amazing experience, right? I was at an event 3 years ago at I Write in Mitchell, and you get a free book because I was chairing an event. The book was Oscar Mazzaroli, the photographs. We thought I took it home, and one night we were sitting saying, let's see if we can see anybody we know in those pictures of the time, what the chances. We opened at a page, and it was a Scottish Cup semi-final 1963, where it was nothing each, and then Rangers beat us on the Tuesday, I think, at Hampden. So huge big picture with about 600 whatever faces in it, and we just looked at it. There's my dad, the top half of my dad's head with a bonnet, next to him my Uncle Timmy. Saw it straight away, so I put that on Facebook and said, look, I've just come through this picture and there's my dad. Now what was interesting about that story was my dad had 9 kids. The twins were 7 months old, were 8 months old or something at the time. So I said to my wife, there's my dad, there's 9 kids at home, but he's no missing that game. He was a good fella in so many ways, but he loved the football. Aye. And I thought that was it, and he did go. But I think if I'd been an only child, I'm sure I'd have been going to the games with my dad for very young. But it was a double whammy of, there's 4 boys, 5 girls. I mean, I go to the games with one of my sisters now. But so there was 9 of us, and then if I think the fact that my dad went with his 2 brothers, it was very tight, you know. No, I don't think. Well, my Uncle Willie drank, my dad and Timmy didn't drink. My dad was always teetotal. Then my dad stopped going to the games when he was in his early 90s, basically, because he used to run for buses and all that, and he was super fit. But he had a fault. It was that, the approach in the grounds around Celtic Park are a total disgrace, and I think it might have been that FC Zurich game at Celtic Park, and my dad tripped on. It was basically just pitch black and rocks. It was like walking across a field, and it wasn't. This was just right outside the stadium. I mean, it was a total shambles. No other stadium would be unlit and so rough ground as that. My dad fell and I picked him up. Well, my dad was very proud. He would never want anybody to take his arm or support him or do anything like that. And then I saw him wobbling on the stairs a couple of times. I thought, and then he just decided he wasn't going to go anywhere. So I think it might have been early 90s when he said, I'm not going back, Whereas you can be assured, if I need to go, I'd be wheeled in, I'd be taken in 2 bags. but my dad, he wasn't for any of that. So when he couldn't run for the bus and do all the things that he did at the football, he was out.
So with your incredible backstory, you decided in 1990 to write the play From Calton to Catalonia.
Yeah, that's right. It was published first by Clydeside Press, I think about 91 or 92, and then in 2014 Calton Books, brilliant bookshop in London Road, got in touch and said they wanted to do it. That was nice timing, because just about the same time, maybe a year or two later, Martin McCarthy got in touch and said, we want to do something with this play, we want to take it on the road, and he got Frank Gallagher and a few other people involved, and Dave Mackay, who was somebody we wanted to be in the original production many years before. So they kind of started doing a series of rehearsed readings and kind of touring it. So that was great. It came back as a published book of the play, and then it came back as that series of rehearsed readings. I should just briefly say the reason we got into the theatre was in 1989 I had a friend called Vicky Clark from Easterhouse, who was with Easterhouse Festival Group, and they did that Freddie Anderson Crasavy, the John McLean play. Anyway, cut a long story short, she had a theatre company going, and me and my brother wrote something with them, with the company. The company was called Pete Road Stoters. It was a fantastic setup, and we came in and wrote a thing called The First Fit. It was just a big, loud Glasgow comedy. But after that, Glasgow was European City of Culture in 1990, and we thought, European City of Culture, we've just written this play, we'd like to do another play. My dad could go any time now. We didn't know he was going to live to be 99. So at that time, my dad would be 82. We said, right, let's tell this story. It's a perfect time. European City of Culture, Glasgow, and there's wee bits of funding going around for theatre. So that was how that kicked off from the Calton to Catalonia. And it was based on the facts of my father's story, which is, while he was in the prison cell in Salamanca, his mother heard that he'd been in a newsreel, and she chased it up from one cinema to another and got 2 frames cut from the reel of my father on the back of a lorry and in a prison yard. When my father came back from Spain, he took the frames to Boots and got copies made, and when he the next kind of veteran reunion of his comrades, he gave them copies of the images. So we'd grown up in the house with this brown envelope with these 2 images in it of my father on the back of the lorry with the other prisoners, and then in the prison yard getting some kind of rations, cigarettes or something. My father never smoked. So that was the basis of the story. So we made my granny an usherette in the cinema, and seeing seeing this on the screen, and that was the setting. It was set between East End, between the Calton and Spain, where my father was. And it was a big success. We were very lucky because we had a great director, Alec McSherry, and we had Gary Lewis in the first production playing the kind of character that was my father. My father said after he saw the play, I really liked that guy, he was great, we could have had more of him. And I said, yeah, but if you'd written it would just be him on a soapbox talking for an hour and a half, that would have been the play. And I said, that's not drama. So we had other kind of characters and political disagreements in it. And but it was great. Vicky Clark was in it, Libby MacArthur, Gary Lewis, and we did a week at the Lithgow Theatre, and it was very well received. You know what I mean? I think it was a big thing. But also the fact of wanting to know the Celtic score while you're in the prison there.
And it's incredible that you're able to do that and then get feedback from your father, who really inspired you to write it.
My father was a laugh. And another funny story about the play was revived and put on at the Tramway in 2004 by this youth theatre group, Caios Greenock. And a funny thing happened. This guy, Mark Fisher, came to the house to talk to my dad. And at one point he said to my dad, so my dad's 96, he said, did you speak Spanish? No, my father in his life, in front of us, never spoke any other language but Broad Scots. And my father spoke a bit of Spanish because he'd picked it up when he was there. I thought, God, I never knew that, but I never thought to ask either. And this guy just asked him and got it out of him. And then he said, so you've been... My dad went to see the play at the Tramway when he was 96, 2004. And the Mark Fisher said, so you've been... And he said, aye, I mean, I'm not at an age when I can go every night. So my dad was thinking he'd have been, he'd have come along to support it. Mm-hmm. Because he did come... One of the great things was in the last night that we did in the Lithgow Theatre in Govan, 7th of December 1990, we did a 5 nights there. And the Friday night, there was 4 International Brigaders there, my father and 3 of his comrades, and they come up and took a bow at the end, and that was fantastic. That was really special. And a few years ago I came across that. It was a VHS somebody had made of it, just a single camera, and it's not great quality, but I put that on YouTube. From the Calton to Catalonia, the original, the Gary Lewis and that is up there now, and there's just a wee moment at the end when you see them coming on. But there wasn't a dry eye in the house.
Incredible moment. And a shout out to the bookshop that stocked that and published it.
Absolutely. Calton Books they've done a great job, and it's great to have it back in play again, because I saw it described somewhere as a minor Scottish classic, and I thought, yeah, I mean, it's a good piece of political theatre, and it's still very timely, maybe even more timely now. Mm-hmm.
Now your love of Celtic obviously was then honed in on another play. 1992, which would have been the 25th anniversary.
25th anniversary, silver anniversary.
Yeah. So tell us, what was the inspiration behind that? What was your initial idea and how did that go?
Well, I had an idea to do something on 9 in a row. I mean, one of my stories is when Celtic did 7 in a row, my father got me a Celtic bag for the barras saying Celtic 7 times league winners. Now that's great, except the school I went to was non-denominational, i.e. Proddy school. There's about 30% Celtic fans. But I went in school with this bag. Well, it was greener when I came out than it was when I went in. So I had a bad day with that bag. That was 7 times league winners. But when I was in 1991, I thought I'd like to do a because I was one of 9 kids, and I didn't know this at the time, my father was one of 9 kids as well. I thought, I'm going to do something called 9 in a row, and that's going to be the play. And I was up in Milton Unemployed Workers Centre, and this guy came in and he said to me, "You're Willy Maley?" I said, "Aye." He said, "Any relation?" I said, "No." And I said to him, "What's your name?" He said, "Ian Auld." "Any relation?" "He's my brother." So it just seemed like serendipity. And then we started talking, and he'd written that. I was doing a writing in residence thing up in Milton at the time, before I got my sort of permanent academic job, and he started talking to Ian. He'd written these stories and so on, and then I found out things like he had been a very good footballer in his youth, and he'd been in Lisbon. I mean, I hadn't been in Lisbon, my father wasn't in Lisbon, none of my uncles had got to Lisbon. My father worked in Red Road Flats, and watched part of the game in a TV shop on the way home. But Ian had gone, and Ian had an experience, because Ian was kind of unofficially there and hanging around in the team's hotel. And one of the stories is that Jock they always knew when Jock was approaching, and he came into the room and Ian was in the wardrobe, because he wasn't supposed to be there. So Ian had those adventures. Funnily enough, Ian had a lot of inside information that never made its way into the play, because the play ended up, once it was written, we talked a lot of stuff about Ian being there. What went into the play was the journey, and this idea of how desperate people were to get there and the lengths they would go to. So that became the story. But obviously Ian being a bit older than me, be about 53 then, I'd be 31. We were slightly different generations, so there was different kinds of patter, different ways of looking at the world. I'm a great believer in co-authorship. I do a lot of co-authorship just through my academic work, and I think it's great because you get 2 different voices. If you look at screenplays now, an awful lot of great screenplays are co-authored. So it was a great experience to be writing with. They're very different for writing with my brother, writing with Ian, and we used to crack ourselves up laughing doing it, and that was brilliant. And then it came out, and there's so many fantastic experiences that arose for that. But one of them was, it was on in the Tron, June 1992, and all the Lisbon Lions came, the whole team in their dark green suits, And that was just incredible. Because I'd been, one minute I was outside, I used to joke, I was outside shouting Spearmint and Macaroon as people were coming in. And then next minute these legends walk in. So that was fantastic. Before that, another great moment was, we were doing it up at Red Road, I don't know, can't remember the name of the community centre up there. And so it was a community centre, I mean, flat seating, no curtain or anything on the stage. And the lights went down, and it was there had been a rumour that Billy McNeill might turn up. Well, this tall figure just walked right across the front of the stage just before we started, and that was a fantastic experience too. So it was a phenomenon. I mean, Joyce McMillan reviewed it for The Guardian and said, not so much a show as a phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And it was that. I've got so many experiences with that one, and I'll tell you what one of them is. I was involved in 1992 on a production of Macbeth that Bobby Carlyle was directing for this company, Raindog, and it was extremely serious, and I sat in with them for their 6-week rehearsal and so on, and I was credited as academic advisor, and that was lovely. And then one night I was sitting at the Arches talking to them, and the Lions of Lisbon was on. I didn't go every night, but Lions of Lisbon was on, and the doors opened at the end, and the show had ended, and for the next 10 minutes there was a sound like a train coming, but that was the applause and stamping of feet. And the funny thing is, I had one of the wee moments when I thought, I've just been, I've been over at Washington Arts Centre where they're doing Macbeth, and that's one of my life's interests, is Shakespeare and all that side. And then there's this other world, but that was a hairs in the back of the neck experience as well.
Unreal. And at a relatively young age, 31, 32.
I was 30.
The Lions are turning up for the show.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then we did it again at the Pavilion, and John Collins and quite a few other players came there. I think there was a couple of different players came every night when it did that run. But getting the whole team that night, of course, this is in the days before photography, or rather before mobile phones. So where are the selfies? Where Bobby Murdoch came up and kicked a ball about up at Royston when we were doing a kind of rehearsal thing. He came up one afternoon. So it was amazing the input we had. I remember if somebody was a business acquaintance, Willie Wallace, coming up to us after we did it at the Arches, and he says, you could take this play anywhere in the world.
Yes. He
says you should, and the thing is, it was pre-digital age, so after the play was on, it entered folklore, so people that saw it, and 10,000 people saw it in 1992. So it played the big theatres, did the Magnum Centre in Irvine, did a week at the Tron, a week at the Arches, did a week at the Pavilion and so on. Lots of community centres and round the houses. But then it just went quiet. And that was it, and the digital age came along, and then Ian Auld sadly passed away in 1998. I'd lost touch with him by then, and then thanks to making contact again with Eileen, Ian's widow, we talked about how great it would be to get it back on for the 50th anniversary. Mm-hmm. Time had just flown, silver had turned to gold, and we did that. We first of all published it as a play with Louth, and had the smart idea of getting 67 Celtic fans to say what 67 meant to them in 67 words. So we put that in, and those interrupted or broke up the flow of the script, the original play. So that was published in 2017 by Louth Press. At the same time, Martin McCarthy, who'd been in the original production, so Martin McCarthy and Frank Gallagher, who'd both been in the original 1992 production, were back on the scene. They did the Calton to Catalonia, took it round. They said, let's do Lions of Lisbon. But there was a problem, and the problem was the play was set in 92 with a flashback to 67. How do you do that in 2017? It was like flashback within a flashback within a flashback. It was very Monty Python. But Martin did an absolutely brilliant adaptation, and should now be credited as a third writer, really, because he adapted it, brought it into the present, put in a lot of jokes, managed to frame it in a way that explains and what people are seeing, and the fact that it's in these 3 times, because everybody knows what's happening in the present with Celtic, but with these jokes about 92,
yeah. And
then you've got the 67 stuff. So Martin did an absolutely fantastic job, and then he got a great cast together: Dave Mackay, Gary Sweeney, and Maureen Carr, all kinds of fantastic actors involved, Frank, and there's been beautiful bits of symmetry because Martin and Frank were in the original. Martin's a daughter is in the remake, Frank's son is in the remake, so there's a real sense of kind of a family history, and they weren't on the scene in the original. So it's been amazing watching it and seeing it back again. Obviously, Ian's badly missed, and that's a real, that's a sad fact of it. But the getting the script published again and getting it back, I never thought that would happen. It was just one of those things that I thought it had got. And people asked me about it a few times and said, "Is that been published? No. Is it on? Can we see the script and all that?" But pre-digital, it kind of disappeared. So to have all that, to have it back on the scene has been amazing. And the reaction that play gets is phenomenal. I always joke about the time at Did Easterhouse, and I say, there was a couple of guys there that were Rangers fans and they helped us take the set down at the end. And I don't mean that they trashed it. I mean, they actually pitched in. So, and there's been people in it. I mean, famously there's been people in it who supported the dark side. And they loved what they were doing, because it's a big, sort of belly laugh of a play, as well as a celebration very specifically of Celtic. So for Celtic fans, it's been the audiences, and I've heard a couple of the actors say, I've had great responses in my career doing different things. I've never had anything quite like this. I know they did it in Airdrie Town Hall. There was 500 people there. And when they did, because they did the 67 thing, and they turned around with their phones, everybody was already there. So I think it's the atmosphere. Brecht used to say he wanted the kind of people that went to football matches to come to his plays, because he wanted that atmosphere in the theatre. And I think it's been absolutely brilliant, the atmosphere there's been. So it's just been great to see it back on the road, as well as, and really in these two forms, because the form that it's been performed in now is really Martin McCarthy's vision of it, kind of adaptation or rewrite, and then the original script is what's out there been published by Louth. So it's been fantastic. Bruce Morton's brilliant in it as Inspector Farquhar.
How many stories could be revisited 25 years later?
Yeah,
they've been almost emboldened by some of the other events that have happened since the 25th. So, like you say, the lights on the 67th minute, that wasn't a thing, because mobile phones weren't a thing,
No. And also, history's a funny thing, because I would say, and I said this to Eileen, I feel that the past gets nearer, but definitely there was more awareness. There wasn't a Jock Stein stand. There wasn't a Lisbon Lion stand in 92. Am I right? There wasn't a William McNeill statue. So the web has done an amazing thing, and it's the very meaning of, if you know the history, you have to be able to reach back. And I think that ability to reach back, and it's amazing the young people that come to the football, and it's all their grandfathers told them and all that, and they're more, I feel people are more in tune with 67 now than they were in 92. 92 was a bit of a lull, and it was like there was a bit of a those days are gone kind of thing. And there wasn't an awful lot of dwelling in the past, and I don't know how many songs or memories of that would have been part of the game. Yeah. So obviously the 67 song coming out at the 67th minute, I'm in the Lisbon Lion stand. The
fact that European Cups with Jock Stein outside the stadium
is amazing. That and the story of Celtic outside, they weren't really cashing in on the history, or they weren't milking the history. In 92, they weren't.
It's like what you're saying, dwelling on the past, but now we celebrate it.
Yeah.
It's probably because of the state of the club at the time. The early 90s, it was quite depressing.
It was, and I think it was kind of against the grain. The other thing is, in 1988, they had the centenary in a Wildcat. I think it was Wildcat. Yeah. Had done the Celtic story, and that was an amazing play. I saw that at the Pavilion with my father in 88. That was probably one of the things that made me say, I need to do this 9 in a row play. So we're going to do 9 in a row, and it became Lions of Lisbon. But yeah, it was a time when there wasn't the web, and I think some of the family connection got kind of missed. So there wasn't the dwelling in the past. It was like, that's behind you now. We won it in 67. We could have won it twice more. We could, and there was disappointments that we'd had. So I think the Lisbon 67 was both a massive source of pride for the club, but also a source of sadness for fans, because you felt those days are gone, and when are we going to be back up there again, and we don't have the money now, and all of this. And so the various kind of senses people had of, it's the biscuit tin, it's the board, something's wrong, football's changed, what about the punter, and all of that. And I think, so in 92, 67 seemed a long way off. By 2017, it was like yesterday once more. It was incredible. And then you start to become aware of the fact that you're touching the coattails of history. People are passing away. Yeah. We've lost Tommy Gemmell, we've lost Stevie Chalmers, Billy McNeill just in the last couple of years. So I think it's amazing to think that in 92 that the team came to see the play at the Tron, and that's something that can never happen.
Never happen,
you know. But at the same time, now there's a song 67. There's much more. There's recognition of that achievement now in a way that there wasn't in '92. So that's really that's raised it up.
Your love of Celtic has also allowed you to work with the club. You've worked within the Celtic View, and you worked on the Celtic Opus. Can you tell us a wee bit about your experiences of working for Celtic?
Well, my experience of working with Celtic started in about 2001. Yeah, but 2001, I got a phone call from the then editor, Andrew Smith, phoned me up and said, would I do a piece for the Celtic View, because he knew I was a Celtic fan and thought it'd be a good idea to get me going. So Andrew Smith asked me to do a thing, and it was a time when the hoops were being broken, remember, on the strip, and that people were up in arms about that. And to be honest, I didn't care, you know. To me, as long it looked, they'll still look like hoops to me, but there was a panel down the side. So, but people weren't happy. But I wrote a thing about that in the Celtic View in about 2001. And from then on, I did a couple of things after that. I got Alistair Gray and through Paul Cuddy did a cover for the Celtic View in 2001. And I did a wee thing about Alistair's youthful flirtation with Celtic. And so I did bits and pieces, probably half a dozen things for the Celtic View over for a couple of years. And then Paul said to me, I think Matt McGlone had left, who'd previously had a column, and Paul said, do you want a weekly column? There's only one Willy Maley, was the column. And so I started doing that, and it was 700 words for Monday morning, basically. So every Sunday night I'd be doing this 700 words. An amazing discipline, because journalism is just a different thing. Academic writing, they say, can you do an essay? Yeah, it's next year. You know, you get a year. To be doing something week in, week out, I found it a fantastic discipline. It made me respect journalists. I was always rooting around for ideas for columns and so on. But it was so that was 2 years, and maybe, I don't know what that would be, 70 columns. So maybe in the end I had a book's worth of columns that I did. Obviously, a couple of times I wrote things that were maybe a bit critical of the team selection. One of them slipped through the net, and the manager took exception to having somebody complaining about who was not being picked for the team. So I got my wrists slapped for that. But overall, it was just a fantastic experience. And getting in, because I would go in there and I knew Joe Sullivan and Paul Cuddy, had a nice chat about a line-up and formations with Jim Craig and things like that. So it was a great thing to do, to be 2 years, 2 seasons, 2003 to 4 and 45, doing that. It was brilliant. But I did one thing connected with that. Before I started on the regular column, maybe about 2002, I got a phone call for the Herald saying, can you preview Saturday's Old Firm game for us? And I said, right, this is a Tuesday, it's going to be in on a Thursday. I said, right, how do I do that? So I went into Tesco on my way home, and I go, I had the Celtic View, I got the Rangers News, and the woman that was serving me at the counter said, I got the two of them. The woman serving behind the counter said, you're getting both of them. She said, my son's a Celtic supporter, but he's signed for Rangers, or he's in Rangers Boys Club or something like that. So she says, we get the two of them. And I thought, that's a funny thing. So I took it home, I read the two of them just to get my head into that week's football. And that Saturday, in the sports section of the Herald, on the front page, was my preview of that day's Old Firm game. And that was an amazing thing. To try to write as a neutral was so difficult. I'll tell you how difficult that is. I was at the game when Juninho made his debut in 2004, and Paul Cuddy took me into the press area. So it was no colours, no cheering and all that. Well, I can tell you that when Alan Thompson's goal went in, I was about 6 feet off my chair, you know. But people just laughed. But they would just know. I mean, I forgot. I couldn't have told you where I was. I just know, because it was a kind of build-up attempt, and then that goal went in. But so yeah, it was a fantastic experience those 2 years. And I stopped doing it because I felt I was running out of ideas a bit. And if you're doing match commentary, it's different. But if you're doing something that's kind of features, I got busier and busier at my work. And I just found having to take that time to write, even though it was a short thing. After I stopped doing it, I kind of regretted that. And I spoke to an artist who'd won the Turner Prize, Richard Wright, and he said, you know, it must be great to do something which reaches such an audience, and it's something you feel really passionate about. He said, I wish people didn't have to go up the steps of a gallery to see my work, to be able to do that. But 2 years and however many columns in 2 seasons was enough, and it was getting to the stage where it was interfering with my enjoyment of the game, because Celtic was always total freedom and pleasure, a wee bit of stress, and suddenly there was that little tension of I'd go to the game, but then the way home for the game I'd be thinking, right, now I need to get my head round an idea. I remember one of the columns I did was about, you know, Bing Crosby and Bob Hope being Celtic and Rangers fans. Bing was a big blue nose, Bob Hope was a Celtic. I just made this up and then wrote about it. It came out the top of my head one time. So yeah, it was getting a bit bizarre. And then at the end I thought, I've done this, it's been a fantastic experience, I wouldn't have stopped doing it. So writing for the Celtic View for 2 seasons, being in the first 3 volumes of Celtic Minded, and then Celtic Opus came along, and the story with that, the outfit behind that Celtic Opus, we were, I think, called Cracus, ran into some financial difficulties. I got a phone call from Kevin McKenna, who I think been asked that they were doing a series of things for the big Celtic Opus. He did a Liverpool Opus and doing a series of pieces on managers, former managers, but they didn't have something for Tommy Burns. They didn't have, I feel like, an essay or a special focus. And I said, I'll do a poem on Tommy Burns. W.B. Yeats meets John Cooper Clarke. I'll do that. So I agreed to do this. So I wrote this thing, and I kind of almost wrote it in a kind of fever, because it was all in my heart and my head at the time. And lo and behold, after a period of time, the Celtic Opus did indeed appear. Knockdown price, £2,500. Coffee table book, about the size of a coffee table. So as I said to somebody at the time, because at the university, everything you publish, you know, it's kind of recorded, and I have a copy of everything I've published, except for the Celtic Opus. So if there's anybody out there that wants to donate one, so I don't have a copy of the Celtic Opus, I've got a copy of my piece in it, and I did get to handle the merchandise when there was a launch thing, I think, down at the Mitchell. Paolo Nutini turned up, they had the European Cup, and I was able to turn the page and see my Tommy Burns poem. But that was a great experience. But even greater than the experience of doing that for Opus was going along to the first Tommy Burns supper that I'd gone to about 2008, 2009, and I read my poem Perfect Passing at the thing, and Tony Mowbray was there, Danny McGrain, Peter Grant, Packy Boner. I was a bit nervous beforehand, went up, belted out this poem, came off stage, and Danny McGrain patted me in the back and said, well done. And I thought, if my dad was here now, when would I have ever thought that Danny McGrain would be saying well done to me, you know? So, as I used to say to people, I could have played for Celtic, but I was shite at football. Hasn't stopped everybody, of course. But so that was my poem that I did, and that was just a great experience doing that. And then I had a chance a couple of years ago, Paul Riley asked me to come back to another Tommy Burns supper, and I wrote another poem, Twists and Turns, which I performed then and then again Saturday night. So those have been my creative things. Also was one of the judges on a kind of creative writing competition that the Celtic View ran in 2003, and they did a little book of fiction out of that. So it was, those were great experiences. The Lions of Lisbon being back on connects that again, so it's nice that some of the creative things of interest that I have been able to connect with Celtic. I ran the Creative Writing Masters at Glasgow Uni, and I was able to put a few very good writers in the direction of Paul Cuddy for the Celtic View. He published a series of short stories and poems, Tom Leonard, Bernard McClaverty, Alistair Gray, as I say, doing the cover. So it's nice to have that connection, and when different bits of your life kind of fit together, that's a great thing, you know.
One of the things that perhaps didn't fit in terms of your love of Celtic and the political mind of a vast majority of the Celtic support is a player who was signed back in the time of Tommy Burns, Paolo Di Canio. Now, Paolo Di Canio is a self-proclaimed fascist, and he's tattooed his body, and he's made the gestures on the field whilst playing for Lazio.
Yeah.
Because of that, Nazio. Because of that, he's, for many Celtic fans, airbrushed himself out the history books.
Yeah.
The strange dichotomy of Di Canio is he entertained, he played the way that Celtic fans loved, he played with a passion that Celtic fans loved. He had a fantastic relationship with Tommy Burns, which is retained through the Burns family to this day, yet Celtic fans don't want him in any way, shape or form to be connected to the club. What's your view on a situation like that?
Well, Di Canio I remember the goal against Aberdeen. I remember the goal in his debut, and when he ran into the goal to get the ball out and was rushing back. I remember the beautiful football that he played. My father loved Di Canio. He loved Cadet. He loved Van Hooijdonk. And he loved players that played the beautiful game and played the Celtic way. And without a doubt, Di Canio played the Celtic way. It was absolutely fantastic to watch. Now, a peculiar thing about my father was, my father loved Real Madrid because he liked Di Stefano and Puskas. He liked that particular team of the early 60s. He was drawn to them. Of course, that was Franco's team, Real Madrid. And in later years, people would say to me, "Oh, Barcelona, and you must be Barcelona if you have a team you're in." I said, "I quite like Real Madrid because I just remember that from my dad liking them." So it's difficult because with Celtic, my father couldn't separate his political interest from his Celtic state of mind. But when it came to players, what made players good was scoring against Rangers was extremely important. Even if you were a goalkeeper, you were still expected to score against Rangers. And playing beautiful football. My father really admired those. I mean, he always liked Berkovic because Berkovic scored 2 against Rangers even though we got beat. So those are the things that mattered. So my father loved the Three Amigos, and I remember those days because things didn't go great in other ways. But when Di Canio left, remember people were saying, and I think Wim Jansen was going to come and build a team around him. That was really what you wanted to happen. You wanted Di Canio to be the centre of things, and that would be how Celtic would play, and that would be what would save us. So that's my view. The politics are obviously, reprehensible, and the racism and fascism and so on. But I'm going to talk about Di Canio as a player. What an amazing player, not just for Celtic, but a footballer, a really astonishing world-class footballer. And we had him, for a very short time. And I'm really glad I got to see him. I remember people singing Di Canio. I remember people that wanted to have Di Canio's kids and so on. And it was a sensation. He was a star. And we've had a lot of fantastic teams at Celtic, a lot of fantastic players, and players with a real talent, but not necessarily charisma or personality or anything else. Now, when it comes to politics, I've defriended a few people over certain things, and I have my own political beliefs. I believe in a united Ireland. I believe in an independent Scotland. I'm anti-fascist, internationalist. I'm not a supporter of Brexit or Lexit or any of its guises because I'm pro-European, and as I say, I'm an internationalist. Individually, footballers, you don't go to footballers for the Communist Manifesto or for Mein Kampf or anything. I don't look to footballers to educate me politically. And so this might seem like a false separation to be able to make, but Di Canio, the player, as I saw him, as I watched him, I remember getting into the Brazen Head in the Gorbals, and they had that most amazing photograph above the bar and I've not been in for a while, I don't know if that's there, of the Three Amigos. And that was just, so it was a season when we were lucky, and we had these amazing players playing. Everything else wasn't fitting together, but when you had that, what entertainment that was in a very brief period otherwise in our history. And I did see Di Canio do some special things for clubs after he left us. Di Canio, yeah, he was pretty special as a Celtic player, because nobody knows, if you go back through history, the Celtic players that might have been racist, that might have been sympathetic to fascism. Certainly a lot of Irish Catholics and Scottish Catholics and Celtic supporters in the 1930s were pro-Franco, pro-Franco, and might even have been real fascists and Catholic fascists that my father didn't have any time for. But so Di Canio, I can see him as a Celtic player, and I can see him in a Celtic strip, and I can see him doing extremely special things for Celtic, and that's the way I would like to think of Di Canio.
So, the Lions of Lisbon, 52 years after the event, and I was privileged enough to see a reading, a very short snippet of that at Tommy Bond's dinner, and it was, it was fantastic. It was great to watch. Looking forward to seeing it. Tell us what's different about this run from the previous ones.
Well, in '92, obviously the original play came along at a time when Celtic were in the doldrums a wee bit, and I think people were a bit disconnected from the history. Lisbon was like, oh, that's in the past, don't mention it. Lisbon means something different. For 2017, you've got Jock Stein stand, Lisbon Lions stand, Billy McNeil statue, Jock Stein not. So I think it's there's much more intense awareness of 67 as an event. What's changed about the play? Well, a few things have changed. First of all, Martin McCarthy updated the play and did an adaptation of it. We're in a different period now. Some of the patter was a bit like your grandad would have told, because it was a mixture of 67 and 92, the humour. So that's been updated. We're in another world now with still game and all of that, so it was updated. And then Martin was also probably doing that with some people in mind too, so he was working with a cast with people like Bruce Morton and Dave Mackay and so on. So that was put together, that was different. Another thing that's different about it is there was a good running joke in it about this guy called Brendan, and the adaptation that Martin did for 2017, and that's had to be adjusted a little bit for this particular run. So again, history catches up with you, things change, and people that mean a lot maybe change in terms of how they would be viewed. So there will be some changes to it. So yeah, it's Martin's adaptation of the play by Ian and myself. And of course, this is different now from, because I think, with the possible exception of, I'm not 100% sure actually, but Dave Anderson, but I know Bruce Morton wasn't a Celtic fan when he got involved. Whereas I think generally Martin has reached out to actors he knows, and he knows a lot of them who have a Celtic state of mind, who are Celtic minded, and that makes it kind of special for them, because the way it's been done, he's got a full squad and he brings people in and out depending on availability for particular shows, and it's great that he's got that. And partly what holds that up is the Celtic energy, if you like, the Celtic way, and they're ready to come in.
When you mention River City, most people will say Lenny Murdoch. If you have to name one, he's the guy.
He epitomises
absolutely
the programme.
Yeah.
And he is, because a lot of people have come and gone, but he's also created that character. Mm-hmm. He's made that character. I mean, I think after Orphans came out, the Peter Mullen film, I thought Frank's going to go stratospheric. Mm-hmm. Now, he got that opportunity with River City, and he's so well known. When we were leaving on Saturday night, the taxi driver got out to get a photograph with him and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's fantastic. It's good to have a recognisable household name and face, and it's fantastic for them, because you to be playing in theatre. Theatre can be very up and down in terms of what audience you get in, what the mood is, and so on. But with this, you get a full house, you get a standing ovation, you get people stamping their feet and cheering, and it's much more musical now. Because one of the things I said about the play when it came out in '92 was the Celtic Story was a show. It was a show with tunes. It was kind of part of that music hall thing with Dorothy Paul and so on. When The Lions of Lisbon came out, it was a play. It was a drama. It was a play. And there was a story that unfolded through this journey and characters and so on. Now, I would say The Lions of Lisbon is a show. It's more of a show because the musical dimension has really come into it, and is a fantastic part of it. So it's more broken up by songs, and I would say it's been kind of showified. It's more of a show than in that sense, probably more like the Celtic Story. But as I say, Martin's done a fantastic job directing and sometimes also acting in it, and it's just been fantastic to see it on again. And I don't know how many times I've seen it now, and then the lines really stick in your head, and it's nice now that it's got that feeling of there's a book, which is the original play, with these little 67 Celtic fans saying in 67 words what 67 means to them. I mean, I was 6 years old, so obviously you've got a mixture of people that were there and that remember a lot more about it than I do. I remember running about the back after the game and celebrating. But so that's the just to get it, to see it back again, and filling these fantastic venues across Glasgow and a little bit beyond. And also, I should mention, the Louth Press done a fantastic job of getting the book out. It was launched at Celtic Connections in January 2017. So the book of the play, I think, is a fantastic document as well. You get 67 on 67, got some fantastic stories told. I mean, it's almost like a tweet. I don't tweet myself, but But yeah, so I think doing that, so I think that's a kind of collector's item too.
The only thing left for me to say is thank you for coming and joining us on A Celtic State of Mind, Professor Willy Maley.
I've loved doing it. Hail, hail.
Thank you.
Cheers.